Sports Down Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. No politics, no drama, no arguing. Just two guys talking sports. I'm your host, JJ Peters. Today in the podcast, we will dive into Thursday Night Football highlights, Gordon Hayward is out again, MLB Free Agency predictions, and much more. But first, we have a poll question. You can vote on Instagram and Facebook at Sportstown_podcast or on Twitter at SportstownPod. The question was, are the Chiefs unstoppable? It's a kind of a simple question, but I kind of wanted to know what you guys thought. I think they're unstoppable. And, well, you guys seem like you agree with me because 67% of you guys voted yes. Again, thanks for voting. You can vote all over Twitter. You can vote on Instagram and Facebook at Sportstown_podcast or Twitter at SportstownPod. Now for a sports update. The MLB will now classify stats from the Negro League as stats in the record book. So the players that play in the Negro Leagues and not the majors will now be considered for the MLB Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Players such as Josh Gibson, Oscar Charleston, James Bell, and Joe Williams will now have a chance to be in the Hall of Fame. The players that played in both the MLB and the Negro Leagues will even look better. Players such as Jackie Robinson, Willie Mays, and Satchel Paige. Some big news in the UFC. Fifth-ranked lightweight fighter Tony Ferguson could be cut by the end of the year, according to MMA official John McCarthy. Ferguson has now lost back-to-back fights and got handled both times. Recently, UFC President Dana White made news saying he would cut 60 fighters by the end of the year. At one time, Tony Ferguson was the interim lightweight champion before getting knocked out by Justin Gaethje. According to McCarthy, he believes Ferguson is getting older and has now lost back-to-back fights, and his relationship with the UFC has not been great over the years, which does not help his case. Big news in the NCAA. The NCAA will now allow a blanket transfer for all Division I athletes, which means that all Division I athletes that transfer can play immediately for the next college they go to, which is great news for athletes that want to play right away instead of having to sit out 1 year for that university. As you can probably tell, most universities and institutions are very jubilant with the new ruling made by the NCAA. The NFL owners and Commissioner Roger Goodell met a few days ago and aren't 100% sure with the 17-game season next year. Commissioner Roger Goodell is confident that a 17-game schedule, like they agreed with the Players Union in March, will happen. The agreement in March was unanimous. The owners and the commissioners will meet again before the end of the year and will have a decision made. There's a 99% chance they end up agreeing on a 17-game schedule because if they don't, they are violating the agreement with the NFLPA. And the second to last one, Alexander Steen of the St. Louis Blues has announced his retirement on Thursday. Former Blue and Maple Leaf, played 15 seasons in the NHL. He was a huge part in the 2019 championship run made by the Blues. It was St. Louis's first Stanley Cup title in franchise history. The last 2 years, Steen had been battling with injuries. He missed many playoff games this year in August. He also just had a second child that he and his wife recently announced. Steen is now 36 years old and was traded from Toronto to St. Louis in 2008. Former Ravens running back and fullback Lorenzo Taliaferro has passed away at the age of passed away at the age of 28. The former fourth-round pick has passed away because of a heart attack in his hometown of Williamsburg, Virginia. On Wednesday, Taliaferro was transferred to the hospital and eventually was pronounced dead. He was released in 2017 by the Ravens and eventually played in the CFL for the Hamilton Tiger Cats as a defensive player. His final season, he played fullback. Lorenzo Taliaferro was from Coastal Carolina, had his best game in the NFL versus the Cleveland Browns as he rushed for 91 yards in a 23-21 victory. Well, the MLB free agency free agency has gotten a little more active the past few days. Still none of the big free agents have signed, but there's a pretty good estimation on where they will sign. I will give you all the updates on the free agency so far. George Springer, he is one of the top free agents in the MLB this offseason. I would think that he returns to Houston, but if he doesn't, I could see the 2017 World Series MVP going to Boston, St. Louis, or maybe the Yankees, just because New York has a lot of money and likes to spend on top free agents even if they don't need him. I predict, though, he returns to Houston. Trevor Bauer is the best available pitcher in the 2021 MLB free agency, maybe even the best free agent. The Reds should bring him back, and he won the NL Cy Young Award. But if not, I would predict the Giants, White Sox, and Rangers could all have a chance at him. But since he should bring back the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner. DJ LeMay was another free agent that I could see re-signing with his team, the Yankees. However, if the Yanks don't sign him, he could go to Miami and maybe Oakland if they don't bring back Tommy LaStella, who is also a free agent. The Angels would be another team that could bring in LeMahieu, especially trying to help out Mike Trout, who seems like he just wants to go to the playoffs, and the Angels are never really that close. So give the guy some help. JT Real Muto is one of the best catchers and now is marketed as a free agent. Real Muto would have made it to the All-Star game last year if it wasn't canceled. The teams that could bring him in would, of course, be the Phillies, which he used to play for, Braves, Marlins, and maybe, just maybe, the Yankees if they don't, or what, depending on what they do with Gary Sanchez. Marcell Ozuna had a heck of a season last year, and he will definitely get paid this offseason. I can see him returning to the Braves again because I think he wants a long-term deal. So I don't think he re-signs with Atlanta. Maybe the Cardinals should bring him back, or could see teams like the Red Sox, White Sox, and the Padres. Ozuna was the first DH player of the year to win it in the NL. Crazy, right? And finally, Michael Brantley is a good outfielder, but a lot better at being a great hitter. He could go to an AL team where he remains as a designated hitter. After all, he is a power hitter. The Angels, the White Sox, and Red Sox and Cardinals could all be intriguing, and maybe the Braves if they lose Ozuna in free agency. Well, the early national signing day of college football has come and gone. To no surprise, Alabama led the way with the most five-star recruits. There were some other prospects that got picked up by smaller schools, but most of the Power 5 conference gobbled up all the big names. That also includes Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, and Clemson. Another team that did pretty well on the early national signing day was Oregon and even Oklahoma as well. How does Alabama get all the top recruits year in and year out? Well, it's simple. They're Alabama. They're pretty much in the championship, or they win a championship every other year. Nick Saban is their coach. He's one of the most popular coaches in all sports. He probably is the best college football coach ever, one of the better ones. He's a great recruiter as well. And even if players don't get a chance to play a lot until their senior year or not at all, they still have a better chance of getting drafted, especially in the first round, because Alabama every year has at least 4 or 5 players being drafted in the NFL in the first round. So that's pretty much why they get the top recruits year in and year. And that's just, you can say the same thing with Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, especially if you're a quarterback. But that's pretty much the answer with Alabama. What school got the most top recruits? Well, Alabama got the most. Ohio State got a lot too. Clemson, LSU, Georgia. Another team intriguing was Kentucky had a pretty good day at signing people, at least according to 24/7 Sports. Kentucky is known for being a basketball school, and they're always grabbing the top names in basketball, but you don't see that in football normally. And yeah, their football program has kind of turned a new leaf recently, but to get recruits like that is just kind of shocking because I didn't think they'd get any of the top 300 recruits, and they did. So, but that's a team you might have to keep an eye on. But yes, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, they all dominated. And Caleb Wilson, the best quarterback in college football, or best in high school football, went, well, Oklahoma. It seems like they can always get the top recruits. I'm still surprised that Lincoln Riley has yet to coach in the NFL or even wants to, which is crazy. Who was the best recruit in high school football, and who did he sign with? Well, technically the best is Corey Foreman from California. He's a big defensive end. However, he is still not chosen who he wants to go to. Right now, it seems like USC and LSU is who he has intrigued, or who he really wants to go to. So the best, J.C. Latham, is the second best recruit. He chose Alabama. He's a big offensive guard from IMG Academy. He's 6'6", 305 pounds. And, of course, Alabama was able to get him. Another guy, the third best recruit, J.T. Tuiloma. I said that name wrong, but he's the third best recruit. He's also a big defensive end, similar to Foreman. He's from Washington, and of course, Washington is one of his options, and Ohio State's another place. So those guys. So technically, the best has not yet to sign, but I can't remember now. But yes, J.C. Latham from IMG Academy, the second best recruit. He ended up signing with Alabama. Got some bad news for Gordon Hayward and Charlotte Hornets fans. Hayward could be out again with an injury, this time with a fractured finger on his right hand. According to multiple reports, he could miss the Charlotte Hornets opener on Wednesday versus the Cleveland Cavaliers and some more time as well. Hayward injured his hand in a loss versus the Raptors on Monday. That's horrible news, especially for Hornets fans, and when realizing that they just gave Gordon Hayward a 4-year, $120 million contract. Hayward has had a history of injuries, especially with happened to him in Boston. His first game against Cleveland, I think it was in the first quarter, he injured his. I just can't remember what he. I think he injured his leg, and that was. I mean, he missed most, if not all, that season. The next year, he was still battling with the same injury. It seemed like he took strides last year and was pretty healthy for his standards. I mean, I think he averaged 17 and a half points per game, I think 3 assists and 5 rebounds a game. So he had a pretty decent season last year, but he just hasn't been able to get to that 2016 form when he was an All-Star right before he signed with Boston. So it's got to be depressing, especially when you have a young point guard in LaMelo Ball. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's just terrible news. Will Gordon Hayward play opening night versus the Cavs? It doesn't seem like it. There's been multiple reports that say he could even miss anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks at the longest. So I don't think he's going to play versus Cleveland. I could see him missing at least 1 week and coming back their fifth or sixth game of the season. They might not even have a chance to compete, but they do have a chance because the Eastern Conference is not the Western Conference. So we'll see how well they do without Gordon Hayward, but he is their best player in that team. So that just doesn't help their case either. Will this injury affect Hayward's play through the season? I think it will. It seems like it's a small injury, but especially, I mean, there's not really a small injury. And with Hayward, I think that's going to end up hurting him down the road because he's dealt with multiple injuries in his career. And now you have to miss 1 to 2 weeks, especially with them not having much of a training camp. He played 1, 2 preseason games, so he doesn't really know much of his teammates. I mean, this is just kind of a mess. So I think it would affect Hayward's play just because he doesn't just. I mean, I think the injury will go away, but I think because he doesn't have the chemistry with the teammates, that's going to make it worse. And I thought before his injury that Hornets had a chance to make the playoffs as a 7th or 8th seed. But with all this happening, I don't know what Charlotte will be, to be honest. Which actually brings me to my next point. Can Hayward stay healthy this year? I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say no, just because he just injured his hand, so I could see him injuring something else. Maybe he injures his hand again. With Gordon Hayward, I like the guy. I like his game. He's a good player, but he just can't stay healthy. So I can't see him. I can't see him making he's not going to make 72 games this year, but I can't see him even playing 50 games this season. And will the Hornets make the playoffs this upcoming season? No, just because they have such a young team. Their chemistry is not great. Now your best player's out. Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham were great last season, but now they brought in LaMelo Ball. We'll see what happens there. But I think they could probably make the 10th seed this year. They're playing 72 games this season. They're not going to win 40. They'll probably win 30. But I just 30, but probably like 32 and 40 makes a lot of sense, or maybe 33 and 39. But yeah, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're probably going to make the 10th seed, but they will make strides at the end of the season. Let's get into some UFC talk. The UFC has revealed their men's and women's women's rankings for every division, including pound for pound. To no surprise, Khabib Nurmagomedov was ranked number 1 in the men's lightweight division and pound for pound. Another obvious one was Amanda Nunes being number 1 in the women's pound for pound and bantamweight division. Charles Oliveira jumped all the way up to number 3 in the men's lightweight division, and Tony Ferguson dropped down to number 4. The top 5 in the men's pound-for-pound rankings are Khabib Nurmagomedov, John Jones, Israel Adesanya, Stipe Miocic, and Kamaru Usman. For the women's division, Amanda Nunes is number 1, Valentina Shevchenko is number 2, Zhang Weili is number 3, Rose Namajunas is number 4, and Jessica Andrade is number 5. First question for this topic, did the UFC get their rankings right? Absolutely. I mean, I have no disagreements with this. I think the top 5 is good for both the men's and women's pound for pound ranking. I'm kind of shocked that Ferguson jumped McGregor or didn't drop down to number 5, which I thought he would. But he's still number 4, and McGregor's number 5. He takes on Poirier on January 23rd for UFC 257. Can't wait for that fight to go. Who is the best pound for pound fighter not in the top 5? Well, I just said him. I think Conor McGregor, who's number 12. Now, Dustin Poirier is 7, and Alexander Volkanovski is number 6. But I think Conor McGregor is better than both those fighters. And, of course, we'll see at UFC 253 who's the better guy, McGregor or Poirier. But I think McGregor should have been should be so low. But I guess he hasn't fought in a while. He hasn't fought since, last year when he took on Cowboy Cerrone. So that's probably why. But I think we'll find out on January 23rd who the better fighter is. And speaking of that, who wins the McGregor versus Poirier fight on January 23rd? I know it's a little early. It's about a month and a half away. But I think McGregor's going to win this in 2 rounds. I think he's going to knock out Poirier in the second round. Now, Poirier, last time he fought, he took on Dan Hooker, and that went to the death. I mean, that was a 5-round fight. That was everything. I mean, that wasn't even pay-per-view, and that was an incredible fight. But I think if Poirier does want to win, he's got to last. He's got to go the distance, go all 5 rounds, but that's almost impossible with McGregor. I see this going very quickly. McGregor wins in 2 rounds and then gets another shot for the men's lightweight title. And last but not least, Thursday Night Football highlights. On Thursday Night Football this week, we got a battle in the AFC West. The 7-6 Raiders, who were hoping to still keep their playoff hopes alive as they hosted their rivals, the Chargers. By the way, beautiful Allegiant Stadium. However, there were no fans, so it wasn't quite the same, but can't wait for the fans to get out there. And even though Raiders fans can be annoying, it would still be fun to watch that. LA was trying to end their 9-game losing streak in the division. Can you believe that? Justin Herbert for the Chargers was also looking to tie Baker Mayfield's rookie touchdown passing record at 27. Before the game, he had 25. The game started out very quickly for the Chargers. Vegas would go 3 down in the first possession, and LA would score on their first possession. By the way, Justin Herbert would find his 26th touchdown to trim Baker Mayfield's lead to 1. The Raiders would get 3 points on their next drive, but it came at a cost. Quarterback Derek Carr injured his groin in the drive and would not return. Marcus Mariota would fill in for Carr. Marcus Mariota hadn't played since last year of week 6. Crazy, right? And since then, he only completed 2 passes before signing a 2-year, $17 million contract with the Raiders. A few possessions later, the Raiders would score as Marcus Mariota found tight end Darren Waller. However, the Chargers would get a field goal and a touchdown to end the half with a 7-point lead over the home team. The Raiders would score on Josh Jacobs' touchdown the third quarter to tie the game at 17, a much-needed rushing touchdown as they have been trying to find a way to get Josh Jacobs going on offense. The Chargers, however, would get a nice drive at the end of that. Let's skip to the fourth quarter. The Chargers had a chance to win the game with 2 Marvin Bagley field goals, but would miss both. Unfortunately for the Raiders, they also had a chance to win a regulation, but the Raiders holder, Adam Cole, would fumble and turn the ball over on downs. We get to overtime where the Raiders would get the ball first and drive down and get 3 points. Here come the Chargers, though. All year, the Chargers had blown leads, but Justin Herbert, the Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate, would not let that happen, especially on Thursday Night Football. The Bolts would drive down the field, and Justin Herbert, give that man the Offensive Rookie of the Year right now, would get the go-ahead touchdown with a 1-yard quarterback sneak and pretty much sacrifice his whole body. I suggest you go watch the highlight. It's pretty crazy if you didn't watch the game. Final score, the Chargers 30, the Raiders 27. Justin Herbert was 22 of 32 for 314 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Austin Eckler had 13 carries for 60 yards, and Jalen Guyton had 4 catches for 91 yards. Marcus Mariota had a pretty nice game with 17 of 28 for 226 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 INT. He also led the team in rushing with 9 carries for 88 yards and 1 touchdown. Darren Waller beasted and feasted, and with 9 receptions for 150 yards and 1 touchdown. Thanks for listening to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and much more. We release new episodes every Wednesday and Friday. Also, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Sports Town Podcast. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.